J. All right, guys. So this dropped yesterday, but I was at work all day and couldn't do a video. So I thought, since I don't go to work until much later today, I would do the video now. Jay is I am like, okay, so if you watch my video where I talked about when they announced all of the updates for 20.0 that I was like super excited for, I figured for the hero changes that they would add squares, because they're obsessed with adding squares to heroes. And I thought that for Snowflake they would add Amulet of Weakness squares, like, so that you could get more weakness squares on top of the Amulet of Weakness squares, making that deck even better. The Witch Frost Minotaur deck, making that deck, like, giving you a quote-unquote free-to-play option as opposed to having a Necromancer. That would have made that better. They didn't do that, but they did make that deck better in the sense that you're probably now going to play Snowflake in the free-to-play version of that. But Jay is the hero that I'm really excited to talk about, because if all of this reads as well as it plays, it's going to be really good. And I'm really excited for it, because I think that this is the biggest jump. I think Snowflake will be good in that one specific Necromancer, Witch, Minotaur, Frost max deck, like Harlequin Mime. In that specific deck, I think it'll be good. But I think that if you were looking for an epic, I think that you would just go for Gadget. If you're going to invest time and money and resources into an epic, trying to get, like, spend 800 crystals to get the 5 to 22 chest, I think that you would specifically just go for Gadget, because Gadget is more universally better than Snowflake. And the one ability that Snowflake, that it could have made it meta, they decided to only have it in co-op and single player. And by single player, I think they mean when you're playing in tournament and you're doing a plunder. That's kind of single player mode. And that's unfortunate. If they made that ability, I guess we'll talk about it then, but if they made that ability in PvP, I think it would have become more meta, and I would have had a better reason to suggest getting Snowflake. But because they didn't, and it's only for 2 modes that don't even matter, I don't think it's useful. But it will be useful in PvP in that one specific deck as a free-to-play version. My quick thoughts on Mari. I have no real thoughts on Mari. It's a unit that I like, but I don't have like a max version of. And each of the additional abilities that you get, I've never been able to use. And I think that they're really good, but I've never been able to use them personally. And so it's just far beyond my comprehension as to what they do. And then they decided to change them and then like update and give you new ones. And so like I have even less. So when I get to Mari, I'm probably going to be very floundery. But I'm very excited for Jay, because I think Jay is now going to be a free to play option that I might suggest if it's as good as I think it is. That's my too long didn't watch or didn't listen to. If you hate all of my long videos, there you go. Those are my thoughts. The morale calculation is really good. I think it's good because it's transparent. It makes it so that you don't have to do math. You could have calculated it before if you did math, and now they're saying, you know what? You don't have to do math. It's fine. So the rest of this video, you don't have to watch. Like, you can just listen to. I'm just going to do this like podcast style. I'm obviously going to show all of this stuff on my screen, but I'm also just going to say it. So if you don't want to watch your phone, then you don't need to. So the old way that morale used to work, it was based on, I guess I just waited too long and my Rush Royale decided to refresh itself. The old way that morale used to work is each unit had a random different number for their morale based on level. So a max Blade Dancer has 2.5 morale. Whereas like an enchant sword that's a level 11, it has 4.3 morale. And then that increases every single time you upgrade it. A Dryad, for example, will give you 6 morale. And then you can get 7 morale, and then 8 morale, and then 9 morale. It was literally the only reason to upgrade Dryad. For the longest time, when Dryad didn't have talents, you weren't getting anything from its increase in damage. So the only thing that you were ever getting was the increase in morale. And that was kind of a reason to upgrade it. Each hero had a specific amount of morale. You would need 1200 morale to activate Gadget's ability. This deck, as a whole, at its current levels, did 30 morale per second. So factoring in that you need 1200 to activate the ability, you were getting 30 per second. You could do the math, right? To figure out how often you could activate Gadget. Whereas Jay, for example, the morale that you would need is 500. So if you were running the same deck, and you had 30 morale, 500 into 30, that's how many seconds it was, and it was obviously less, and that's why you got the ability more often, right? And that's why Gadget takes forever. That was the old system, and it never really made sense because each different unit had a specific amount of morale that it decided to randomly decide to give, and that seemed like it made sense. Like a Gadget would get, or a Blade Dancer would get much less because it's a hero unit, whereas like a support unit, like a Dryad, would get much more, and it would scale more, right? A long time ago, there was a deck called the Morale deck, where they just decided to utilize every single high morale count unit, and it was like Banner, because Banner at max level gives you 13, Thrower gives you 11.2, Mime gives you 12, Crystal Mancer gives you 9.5. Like it was dumb. It was incredibly silly. I don't know why I wasn't just building this deck here. It was like Banner, Mime, Crystal Mancer, Thrower. Was it Portal Keeper? And it was Portal Keeper. You were getting 58 per second. This is the max morale deck. And they were running like Snowflake. It was like this deck in Snowflake. It was never going to win anything, but it was funny. It was hilarious. Because if I like just jump into a game right now, I wasn't actually planning on doing this, but I want to show you like why this old system was dumb. Each unit had like a random assigned morale, boost to it. And it never made sense. It was just it was all over the place. And so sometimes you would put in, you would never technically do this, but you could decide to slot in a unit for its higher morale than you needed to. So like, I almost have the ability right now. And there it is. Jay is also Jay is the quickest unit to get morale. It was 500 morale. And so like you had the ability to just activate it all the time. I think the idea, or the better one was Trickster, because you could just constantly steal mana like for the whole game. You would just constantly be able to have it. But see, like this entire system never made sense. And so the way that they're currently doing it, it's going to be a percentage. It's percentage. Each unit is going to give you a percentage bonus, or a percentage for its cooldown reduction. So the cooldown reduction will be 1% at level 1 and 8% at level 15. Presumably, everything in the middle, it will just increase like that. it'll increase from 1% to 8%. So at level 8, at level 15, all of your units will give you 8% cooldown. 8 times 5 is 40%. You could theoretically get 40% if you had an entire max deck. And I think they're generalizing that for every unit. And if they are, that's infinitely better than what the random old system was. Because the random old system benefited you for theoretically having a different card. I saw this in play once. Like they were choosing to use like Harley Quinn, or Mime. They were choosing to use Mime over Harley Quinn because it would give you a higher morale count. I mean, I can't remember what deck this was where you wouldn't run Harley Quinn and you could run Mime instead. Or you would want to run only one of them as opposed to both of them. I feel like most decks that you would want to run a Mime in, you would run a Harley Quinn in, but there was one example where somebody was choosing to use a higher level Mime than a Harley Quinn because the morale boost was a little bit more. But now, based on the unit's level, you're getting a cooldown reduction that is based around that. And so they're saying that Jay has a 40-second cooldown at base. And then if you had things in your deck that equaled a 30% cooldown reduction, the 40 seconds minus 30%, it would be 28 seconds as that you would be able to use Jay's ability. And I think that's just easier. I think that's better. I think that's a much better, it's a much cleaner way of calculating morale, where the last way was just kind of random. It was random in between units. It was random in between like levels, right? You had things that gave 12 at max. There were things that gave 2.5 at max. There were things that gave 13 at max. There were things that gave 11 at max. It was just so random. And now giving every unit a flat thing based on level, I think is just much cleaner. So I like this change. Second Wind. In Update 20.0, all heroes will receive a new ability called Second Wind, which is unlocked at hero level 20. Just for context, I spend a bit in this game. I've never spent money on heroes other than Gadget. I've gotten everything else naturally. I've just, like, over the course of my playing and my just obtaining things, right? I have one level 20 hero, and it's Trainer. My J isn't even a 20. Or, like, all of my rare heroes are not even 20s. And Gadget is obviously the only one that I've, like, tried to get through gems, with gems and with things. And that's why it's at 14, whereas generically, my epic heroes are at 9. This one just came out, so it's 2. Jake Paul, I'm not even going to try for. And then I've never been able to get the legendary heroes even unlocked. And then for my rare heroes, none of those are at 20. So I don't know how much this is going to come into play, but I like that it's a feature. But it does seem like a feature for like high-end level players. The ability will allow, with a certain chance, to partially or fully charge the active skill of the hero immediately after using it. And it varies between the different heroes. I don't think this is a thing that you'll ever have to like worry about, unless you become like an endgame level player, and at which point endgame level players are going to have a great time with this. But even if you were excited about this ability, just know it's very difficult to max out a hero. You need there's a lot of shards that you need, and you don't get hero shards as much as you get unit shards. J. This is the thing that I think is the biggest jump for this update. If J were... Oh, that's what happened. I was like, what just happened? If J works as good as it reads, and I don't know what it looks like in play, but if J works as good as it reads, it's going to be really good. So its active ability was the shower of arrows that you just saw. And that's basically all it did. Everything else was like a passive ability. Then it got squares, but everything else was basically a passive ability. And its main ability, what's happening here? I don't know. I don't know what that was. Okay. Its main ability was the shower of arrows. J, they completely reworked. So its now active ability is called Crack Shot. It begins to rapidly fire at the first target in her path, dealing area damage. The hero's arrows reduce the monster's armor and increases the damage from subsequent arrows hitting against it. So when it attacks, or when you use the active ability, it fires at the first target and it deals area damage, which already in and of itself is great early game. We already know that J has a really low cooldown, so this is going to super help you early game. And it's also reducing the monster's armor, so it kind of acts as a chemist as well. And I don't know how much that armor reduction is going to be, but the fact that it even has it is amazing, because that means that that'll also work late game for bosses. And that's what you want. That's what you need to kill. The critical, so it's going to work as area damage for the early game. And then even if it were to drop off late game, it'll still work because of armor reduction. It's amazing. The critical hit chance of J's attacks will be increased. It also, the hero's arrows reduce the monster's armor and increases the damage from subsequent arrow hits against it. That's going to come into play later, because that didn't make sense to me. Because I was like, if it's a hero ability, how often can you use it for each subsequent hit, right? Because it doesn't just matter that it's the first hit. It increases when it has additional hits, right? But if you can only activate the hero ability once, how would that even come into play? My God. So wind speed ability has been moved to level 5, which is better. It says spawns 4 tiles at random locations on the field. The attack speed of units inside them is increased. This is the same ability, and I'm not sure if they mean, I'm pretty sure they mean to say that it starts at 5 and then at 10 you get another one, and at 15 you get another one, and at 20 you get another one, right? I'm pretty sure that's how it would work. I don't know that, but I trust that it is, because if level 5 was just, you just get all 4 tiles and the speed increase is going to climb as you level it up, that would be insane. If that is the case, if at level 5 you get 4 tiles, use this hero. I'm just gonna say it right now. I don't even need to keep talking about J. Like, I don't even need to talk about the other 2 abilities. If that is the case, go for this hero over Gadget. If you get 4 tiles at level 5 and then the speed increases as you level it up, just use all of your gems and go for J. Like, that would already make it just better, a better hero than most things other than Gadget. And Gadget is the best hero that's not Zeus, right? Those are your levels now. Because before it was don't spend anything on any unit except Gadget, and now it's like Gadget's kind of far away. Gadget's going to take you a lot of investment, not as a lot as like Zeus, right? But if you were to spend like the 300 gems on a J chest, which I might do. If you spend like the 300 gems on a J chest, like early on in the game, and you max out a J, like early on, and then use that and then go for Gadget, I think that's a viable option now. Because I think Gadget's a lot of investment, and it doesn't even work until you get to like 5 and 10. And it's a lot of investment. It takes a lot of time. And there's a lot of time in between that you could have had Jay. And Jay will push you much further. Or not much further, but it'll push you pretty far. Level 10, Sudden Shot. Units inside the wind tile has a chance to trigger Crack Shot during their attack, but the shots will be weaker. I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't matter. Weakened arrows have the same basic effect as the Crack Shot ability, reduce armor and increase damage from new arrows against a monster. That means that not only are you getting the active skill from Jay, but you're also getting it from every unit in a square that also has attack speed. That's insanity. The ability to deal additional damage from your unit to reduce the defense and deal additional damage through new arrows, and for that to be increasing damage because of every subsequent shot. It's so good. It's so good. And I'm saying this not knowing damage numbers. Because what if it does 1 damage? What if it, just to be an extreme, right? What if each arrow does 1 damage, and then it increases when it hits again, and then it does 2 damage, and then it does 3 damage? The damage numbers could be terrible. And I'm saying, even if the damage numbers are terrible, I would still use this, and I would still recommend this hero based on armor reduction alone. But I'm just saying, the fact that they're giving your wind square, not only are they getting attack speed, but they're also able to use the active ability. That's crazy. That's crazy. The rain of arrows that used to be the animation is going to be the level 15 ability. When a mini boss or a boss appears, the hero summons a rain of arrows that slows monsters in the impact radius and deals damage to them. Activating the ability temporarily increases the damage and attack speed of all units on the field. Activating the ability temporarily increases the damage and attack speed of, let's read this again, all units on the field. Just spend all of your money on Jay. It's so good. That ability works at any stage of the game. It works early on, it works late game. It's gonna slow mini bosses, and as such, it'll slow the wave. So it's a way to slow your field without having to slow your field, without having to put in something that slows your field. This is gonna come into play so much. It's so good. I don't know if you realize how good Jay is. The jump from, I love talking about things that go from 0 to 100. Those are my favorite parts of an update. It's something that you didn't think was good, and now it's amazing. What they did to Trapper. I think Trapper is the biggest nothing to something that I've ever seen. We used to call that, Games by the Beach used to call it Pretzel Thrower, because it was just useless. And that was the coolest thing it did. It threw pretzels on the field that did nothing. That unit went from nobody played it ever. It was like the equivalent of playing like a stasis or a portal mage. It was something that bad people used in co-op for no reason. And it went from that to the best unit in the game that they had to nerf it. It was doing so much damage reduction and slowdown that they had to nerf it. I love talking about things that go from nothing to something. And this thing went from nothing to, I'm gonna suggest you get this, maybe over Gadget. It's just Gadget's obviously better in the same way that you know, if I'm saying go for Gadget, shouldn't you just be going for Zeus, right? But I think that it'll, like, getting J, like maxing out a J and then switching over to Gadget over the course of time, but having a maxed out J, I think that that's better because it's much easier to obtain for a newer player. Like the 300 gems to get 5 to 22 shards all the time, I think that's a doable thing, especially for a new player. And I think that this will take you very far. And like once you max out a J, I think that you can then go for Gadget and then max out a Gadget. And then if you max out a Gadget, you go for Zeus, right? I think that that's the progression now in how you should spend your gems. I think this is so good. All right. And the heroic item is also buffed. Oh, by the way, if you have the heroic item, that's also getting a buff. So there's only one thing that I really want to talk about with Snowflake. This was really just going to be a J. Like, I just wanted to praise and showcase how good J is. I think that Snowflake it's okay. The ability that I thought if they added it to PvP, I would have wanted to talk about this more. And I was really excited for it when I first read it. But then I realized that it's only in co-op or in solo. And solo mode, I want to say, is Plunder. I'm pretty sure that is the solo mode of this game. Winter's Kiss, which is its active ability, freezes monsters and it deals damage to them. And then it says in PvP, it also freezes the opponent's units, which is the best thing that it does, right? This is why you would want to use it in what's it called? In the Toxic deck. This is why I think it's a good free-to-play option for the Toxic deck, which is Minotaur, Frost, Witch, Harlequin, Mime. That's the you max out all of those cards, and then you run Hunter's Jacket, Amulet of Weakness, and then you run this. That deck normally runs Necromancer, which is obviously better, but I think that freezing your opponent's units, and I'm pretty sure you'll get an additional freeze at every 5 increments. Don't quote me on that. But I think that you'll get, like at level 1, you'll get, when you use the active ability, you freeze an opponent's unit. And then at level 5, you'll freeze 2 units. And then at level 10, you'll freeze 3 units. And then at level 15, you'll freeze 4 units. And then at level 20, and then at level 20, you'll freeze like 4 units. 5, what is it? 1, 5, 10, 15, 20. At level 20, you could theoretically freeze maybe 5 units, right? Every time you use the active ability. I don't think it'll, because it's not just gonna, so it says freezes the opponent's units, which is misleading, because then that makes you think that it freezes all units. It doesn't. A-Friend Gaming, or no, Godlike Mike posted a video where he was given all of the new things, and he was using Snowflake, or his opponent was using Snowflake, and it froze like 2 of his units. And then he played a different game and it froze like 3 of his units. So it's not all. And I'm pretty sure it'll probably increase every 5. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that that's realistically how it would work. That is a really good ability for that specific deck. It works in other decks, right? It works as just a unit that does that. But the thing that like killed me was, in co-op and solo mode, it temporarily buffs the player's units. Each unit frozen or empowered by a hero's ability yields an ice shard that increases the damage from Winter's Kiss. I thought that every time you used the Snowflake ability, that you would get an ice shard, and it would increase the damage that using the ability would do again, which would be amazing in Blooming Dash Blade Dancer, because you always basically keep the same units on your field, and if you could keep hitting Snowflake's ability and it would keep getting ice stacks over the course of the game, that's just a different way of increasing your damage theoretically infinitely. And if that were the case, it would be amazing. And I would maybe suggest that there is now a good enough hero that's good enough as Gadget. Like, instead of playing Gadget, you can instead play this. And like the caveat to that would be like it only it increases your Snowflake ability, your active ability. But if you merged out like the unit, for example, then it wouldn't, because the stacks would go away. Right? You have to keep the same units on the field for it to get stronger and stronger and stronger. Right? It doesn't work like that. And furthermore, it only works in co-op and solo, which are two modes that you should already be able to solo by yourself without having this. So you don't need to be more powerful what I'm trying to say is you don't need to be more powerful in those modes, because you should already be beating it without this. And that kind of ability would only be really good in PvP, where it's just a battle of increasing damage, and that would theoretically give you increasing damage, but it's not how it works. The Cold Welcome ability has been improved. When an enemy unit spawns, it has a chance to be frozen with Winter's Kiss in PvP. Also, the damage of the player's units is increased for every ice shard in co-op and solo. Winter's Kiss in co-op and solo, Winter's Kiss has a chance to buff the player's unit when it spawns. It's okay. Like, it's fine. And then the Bester of Cold is unchanged, and Frostbite is unchanged, and they're buffing the heroic item. Mari, I don't know if I've already stated this. I think I did when I was doing the too long didn't listen. I don't use Mari enough in order to care about any of these abilities. I think Mari at max is really good, but I think Gadget is much better. I think that it works in specific situations, but I don't think that it is something that will change your game dramatically. I think that if they can kill the units, if they can kill the base units in the game, right? If they can kill the base attacking units in the game, they can probably kill the things that you're summoning, no matter how many things you're summoning. And that was the best thing that Mari could do. Yes, it gave you mana, but like the only other thing that it also did was it would produce a unit right before a boss, or units before a boss, that they would have to kill first and then attack the boss. Currently, nobody cares about bosses. There's so much cleanse and level up and damage that the amount of like units that you'd have to summon would be insanity, because most people can insta-kill everything. And even if the effect goes through, Inquisitor doesn't care. Even if like the King Pudding goes through, right? Inquisitor doesn't care. Like, yeah, you do it again before a Bedlam, right? That's like the best case scenario. But I don't think that I don't think anything that they could do to Mari would change the world. That's my hot take. You can read this all yourself. I've already talked about a lot. They also changed Mermaid, but again, I have like a level 2 Mermaid. I have no thoughts about any of this. Watch these two like be like the best, like stand out. Like, people stop using Zeus, everybody starts using Mermaid. I'm gonna be like, what did I not read? But yeah, those are my thoughts. I just really wanted this to be a J video. But that's it. Like, I don't have enough thoughts on either Mari or Mermaid, mostly because I don't have them leveled up to have any thoughts to begin with. And these are compounding thoughts about like, oh, what do you think about the change? I'm like, I don't even know what Mermaid does in general in order to talk about like how they're changing it. So yeah, if you care, it's all on the Facebook Rush Royale page. It's on the Discord. I think it's on the Twitter, whatever you use. But yeah, spend all your money on Jay. Jay's amazing.